here is one man who really does know stuff about Iran and the wider Middle East. He is the Conservative former Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat, who served in the British Army Intelligence Corps and fought in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Trevor.
What do you make of what you've been seeing from Iran in the past week?
Well, I think this is one of those moments when you can feel the seismic shift happening. You heard it from Nazanin, you've heard it from Masih Alinejad, you've heard it from many other people who really understand Iran personally, that this is a fundamental shift point. Now, does that mean it's over tomorrow? No, not necessarily. It might take weeks, it might even take months, it could even take a year or two, but there is no way for this regime to recover its legitimacy. And now what we're watching is the death throes of a violent regime, as Jerry quite rightly put it, murdering thousands and thousands of people, as it has done for 47 years. And the correct answer is for this to be over quickly, because that will at least save lives.
Well, we say that, but of course, what we've seen in other areas, the Arab Spring, go back to Tiananmen Square, this could go the other way. A regime that simply eliminates the opposition.
So of course it's possible, but the difference is quite fundamental. Unlike China in 1989, when there was an economic boom coming, unlike in Egypt, where the Muslim Brotherhood lost legitimacy because Morsi was such an appalling leader that he allowed the place for the military to take back control. Here, we've effectively had a military control under the IRGC. They've eviscerated the Army, Navy and Air Force, so it's really the IRGC. We've had a theological control under the Ayatollahs for 47 years, and we've since had economic failure. Now, if you just look at the way the rial against the dollar has shifted, around the time of the
Iranian
revolution...
currency.
Sorry, forgive me, The Iranian rial around the time of the revolution in 79 was pretty close to the dollar. It was a few times, but pretty close. Went up to about 300,000-400,000 about 4 or 5 years ago. It's now 1.4, 1.5 million. The inflation rate is extraordinary. People are hungry. You've also got water problems. So even the rural base of the revolution has lost, if you like, that connection because of the massive water problems. And you've just seen in the last few months, I can tell you, you've seen members of the Iranian elite buying gold in the United Arab Emirates, effectively a hedge against this currency failure, which really doesn't speak to a long-term confidence that the regime has in itself. So you're seeing the regime looking for its opt-out, if you like.
Should we be supporting Mr. Trump, however, if you like, rhetorically rather than practically, when he says that if the Iranian authorities start shooting protesters, which they apparently have been doing already, then they can expect the United States to open fire?
So my view on this is that the UK has had a very, very long historical involvement in Iran, and it hasn't always gone well. The correct thing for us to do is to support those protesters by making sure that people like you giving them the news that they need to hear so they actually know what's going on in other parts of Iran, because satellite broadcasts are still getting through. I'm told this from via friends, if you like. So we make sure that they're aware of what's going on in other parts of Iran, the support they have from the wider world. We shouldn't be involved on the ground. This is a matter for the Iranian people. It's their legitimacy. It's their revolution.
One thing we could do, and I asked the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, about this morning, is we could have prescribed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that there may be technical issues here, it's a state organisation and all of that, but where do you stand on that?
So my own view is that the IRGC, although it is technically part of the constitutional makeup of the Islamic Revolution, of the Islamic regime, it is a standalone organisation, so I believe that we should have prescribed it. I made that argument when I was in government at the time. That said, as Jerry correctly explained, according to our laws, which are not the same as the US, our prescription regime means that we don't prescribe state organisations because technically state organisations can't commit terrorism, they can commit war crimes but not terrorism. That's why I introduced the National Security Act in 2023, which gave us the power to prosecute anybody who assisted a foreign intelligence service, and the IRGC is a foreign intelligence service. And so effectively, the powers that prescription would give in the UK, we got them into law anyway in 2023. So it's a symbolic difference. I happen to think it's an important symbolic difference, but it's not one that would make a huge legal difference in the UK.
You've seen the aftermath of regime change up close in Iraq and Afghanistan. If the regime of the Ayatollah Khamenei were to fall, what happens next?
Well, that's a really big question, Trevor. And I think there's a few things that we need to be clear about and that we need to prepare for. The first is we need to be absolutely clear that members of the regime will not receive asylum in the United Kingdom. Now, under the United Nations Refugee Convention 1951, we can refuse under Article 1F and under 33(2), we can refuse asylum to those who are either guilty of war crimes or those who are liable to cause harm to the UK. Now, given what the regime has done in the UK, attempting to kill journalists, attempting to undermine the peace, attempting to do harm, I think that's a pretty easy case to make. But the second thing I think we need to be doing is we need to be getting people who have a stake in Iran, and I don't just mean us and other European countries, I mean countries in the region who have a stake in the stability of what comes next. We need to get together now so that whenever this change happens, and as I say, that's up to the Iranian people, it's not up to us, then we're ready immediately to support, because the failure that I saw in Iraq and Afghanistan wasn't the invasion, it was the day after, when the new regime, whether it was us or whoever it was who was leading it, wasn't able to make those deliverables that got them legitimacy early. Now, we know in Iran they already have serious water problems. They have serious medical problems with the lack of access to medicines. They have serious food problems. So, there's a lot of things that we need to get in, including, by the way, helping them to rebuild their energy sector quickly so they can stand on their own feet.
Well, on the energy sector, of course, Iran has earned foreign money by exporting oil against sanctions through, I gather, Venezuela. Has the fall of Maduro made any difference to the posture towards Iran?
Yes, it definitely has. And when people say Trump hasn't acted against Iran, I just point you at Venezuela. Venezuela has effectively operated as one of the banking hubs of the Iranian regime for the last 10 or so years. And it's important to look why the fall of Maduro has made such a difference, because actually Venezuela was only one of the banking hubs before. But with the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, with the change of the stance of many of the Gulf countries, with the undermining of the Lebanese government by Hezbollah and therefore the collapse of the Lebanese economy, what you've seen in the region is you've seen much less ability for Iran to sponsor its proxies, get dirty money for its sanctions and so on. So Maduro's fall has been absolutely key to that. And you're absolutely right that it's not so much the oil goes via Venezuela, but a lot of the flagged vessels and so on, like the one that was just stopped in the North Atlantic.
The Bella One.
Exactly right. Those ships, that shadow fleet, is smuggling oil out, which, by the way, China is buying at a discount rate, funnily enough, and so it's subsidising Chinese
by the way,
competition.
Heidi Alexander said to me this morning that there's 200 boats in this shadow fleet, which our defence ministry says have sort of stopped operating. Is that credible?
Well, it's certainly credible there's 200 ships. I'm not entirely convinced that they've all stopped operating. It's one of the things that frustrated me in government, actually, when we have people talking about international law and how it constrains the UK and how we have to bear it on things like Chagos or whatever else. But we're not willing to use international law that is absolutely clear in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea that unlicensed, rusty, oil tankers who pose an environmental and actually, threat to life of the crew are operating, and we have not only a legal right, but a legal responsibility to detain and intervene. So I'm very glad the Americans did in the North Atlantic, and we should be doing exactly the same in the Baltic and the North Sea.